Hello again. Okay, so this is I don't know, I think it's my fourth or my fifth video, and I just want to do a bit of an update on what's happening with the website. It's coming along. Generally, I've had to rebuild this thing 3 times now, a couple of times on different website hosters. I've been working with someone now to get it done on specifically WordPress, I think it is, and it's going to be rebuilt, sort of revamped from the bottom up again. So all of the same content is going to be on there, but it's going to be cleaner and it's going to be a lot more organized. My main focus was how the website is going to be looking, a general website in my mind, from what I've seen from all the websites that I visit every day, as you do too, that they should be generalized pages. The one I have now is sort of one big scroll of like quarter pages, half pages, because of the way that I create these things. I create them sort of the same way that I write. I sort of write um, how it comes out in my mind. I don't try to functionally make it literally and in the most literal sense clean, because that's not my concern. My concern is not clean. My concern is getting the thoughts out there, getting people thinking about it, getting people to understand the storyline and the plot twist. I don't know. There's it's not really a plot twist. It's just generally a different viewpoint on some ideas that pop into my head and have popped into my head over the last couple of years. We'll just say a couple of years. I don't want to date myself here. Anyways, so having somebody else on the outside who is in the business is a great help, and I really appreciate her help. Now, when it does get finally cleaned up a bit, this website is still active, the one I'm attached to, and it's functional. It's not as easily user friendly as I really need it to be. So when you go into the site, you can still navigate it. It's just not exactly the way I want the pages to stand out, each one being individualized. What I wanted to do was have, let's say, your main page introduces who I am and what I've been working on for 30 years. And then the option to go in and see the type of work it is. So some free content, which is going to be constantly added to because I'm constantly creating content. There's going to be the options of each page individually being able to be individual stores. These stores would have um, children's books, flip books, audio books, and I think the audio books would be the most user friendly. Probably the most sought after would be audiobooks, because I know that a lot of times I'm busy, I'm doing something, I longboard, I snowboard, I do lots of stuff like that, especially with my kids. So it's not like while I'm longboarding, I'm listening to audiobooks, but while I'm driving and stuff like that, when we're driving to Mount Washington, we're usually, I like to listen to podcasts. And that's that time where I have like half hour increments, 1 hour increments where I can listen to stories or listen to these sorts of videos and just get entertained better than I probably remember being entertained on cable TV for years and years and years. Not that there isn't anything good on TV, there's generally nothing good on TV. So the fact is, each page needs to be able to take you directly to, say, children's flip books, which I've created. The children's flip books, they're ready to go. They're just not, the old flip books are in the website now, and the new flip books are ready to be transferred over. But because I'm not the most um, learned person on how to create websites effectively, that's why I needed this friend of mine to come in and sort of hold my hand, because I do need adult supervision sometimes, that they are going to create this in WordPress where it's a lot more intuitive. So having done that, or in the process of doing that, we're going to be able to have the new flip books downloaded into it, and they're going to be able to be purchased, and they can be downloaded. I'm going to have the ability for physical copies and narrated copies. Then there's the stories, which are 3,000 words, 5,000 words. So there's novellas, there's short stories, they're just enough story for you to listen for half hour to an hour. I'll be narrating those, but I'm waiting for, and this was kind of silly because I was talking to somebody at work. I'm waiting for a shield, one of those hissing shields, and I didn't know what it was called, so I was at work because I have a job. And I was talking to somebody, and I said, "You know those fabric shields you get in front of a microphone?" And they said, "Yeah, it's a pea shield." And I started laughing. I was like, "No, man, there's no way they would call this thing a pea shield, because it makes my head think of something way off base." So looking into it, I had to ask my 11-year-old son, "What is that thing called that you see, you know, YouTubers using that stops the hiss?" And he had to look it up, but he knew exactly what I was talking about because he's 11 and he watches a lot of YouTube channels. And we found out that it was called a pop shield. So he was close, my friend at work, and I didn't mean to laugh in his face, and he knew I wasn't laughing at him. I just thought the term pea shield was way too funny. And I know that the lighting in here is really off because I'm getting the sun coming directly into the window, and it's messing up what I normally have for lighting here, which is late afternoon sun. It doesn't come directly in. Anyways, so when I get this pea shield or this pop shield, then I'll be able to start with the narration of all the stories and all the these things. They're going to be better because right now I'm just using a tablet. I do have a microphone, I do have a camera, and everything's ready to be set up. I just have a video 4 or video number 5. I don't know which one I'm on, but you're growing with me. I'm growing this slowly. It's, what do they call it? Organically, which sounds very, I don't know, Canadian. So just like molasses or syrup, yes, I'm growing this very slowly, and it's going to come together. But everything's going to be available, and there, like I say, there's going to be. See, I'm all over the map. When I do that, I'm all over the map. I'm like, my head is like chasing butterflies. So there's going to be, and I try not to say too much. That's one of the things I've noticed in my other videos, is that I say that too often, and I've been trained in the work that I've done in the past how to stand in front of an audience and speak clearly, speak coherently, and not break it up with any fillers, because these fillers and these gaps make people lose attention. So I don't want to rely on a backup of constantly, it's like a security blanket. You go, So I just did that again, and I don't want to use that as, did it again. I'm trying to break away from that. So it'll happen. I'll get used to it, doing it again. So the point was, I have art, which are flash, basically sort of like you'd imagine tattoo flash. And those are going to be like available just to view. They can be purchased on print. There are some flash that I've had people ask me for a copy. My logo, the head on the chain, was originally flash, but I did that one sort of in anticipation, knowing that I needed a logo that was easily identifiable, which is why I got the print silkscreen kit. And I'm growing on that one so that I can make some swag for myself, so I can self-advertise. And that's the big thing about these sorts of small businesses, is that the biggest thing is advertising, right? You can't compete with the big boys, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. What I'm trying to do is just get my views out and my points out and try to make a little bit of entertainment for people out there. There's the lack of good content, and not that this is great content. This is just content. This is just more. But I'd like to stand out a little bit because everything that I create is my own, and I want to make it user friendly. I want to make it so that it's effectively stuff that people would want to pursue. So the flash is part of that, where they see, this is sort of what I create. And then there are one-page stories, and then there are, which will be, free to view and read and get a sense of how my head works. Then there are the novellas, which will be for purchase, and those will be also narrated. And those are the ones that I think the narration versions are going to be the best sellers, not necessarily the print versions, which you can download the PDFs for yourself. The store is already set up and everything's been done through PayPal. It's just a matter of, in a new website where it's cleaner and every page is easily identifiable, that it's going to be a lot easier to navigate through the website, because it's not like one scrolling page that has like quarter of a page with these weird breaks and all this stuff, because I'm really bad at this, creating a website thing. I don't write code. I was going to learn it in like way back in grade 6 when they first came out with the Apple computer. Yeah, I'm dating myself. But when I didn't get into it as heavily as I should have. Yeah, missed opportunities. It happens. So I will have those two versions or two sections where there's a fair amount of free content, and I'm going to be adding to it all the time. Yes, there's poetry. I don't know. It is what it is. Some of it's entertaining, some of it's just bizarre. But I think my view has always been that some of the best artists out there, some of the best creators out there, get their material from challenges in their life, right? From distress and from a point of passion in their life, where something happens that can is like a fork in the road, and which road they take sort of directs them on how they work with the world around them. So I've been through a fair amount. I'd like to eventually discuss a little bit more about me, and with a little bit more time and a little bit more content, I'll be able to do that. What I can say is that I have 6 biological children, 2 children from marriage, so 8 kids altogether, 4 girls, 4 boys. They're all fantastic. I love them dearly. They're all great people. Nobody's ever been to jail, so I can kind of, one for me, one for our side, right? So I can at least say that being proud of them is something that I can say that if nothing else occurs in my life and nothing else is, I'm trying to get away from maybe I should just poof or huff or something. If I can say that nothing else, if I create or if I do nothing else in my life, I have already left a legacy, and my children being the legacy, which is a fantastic thing to be able to look back on and say, I've created something greater than myself. Now, beyond those two entities in my website, the flash and the short stories, there's also the portions of the website that are attached to stores, and the stores are going to have, like I say, the children's books. They're going to have the stories. They're going to have the narrated stories. They're going to have the ability to purchase hard copy. There's going to be doing it again. there's going to be sort of guidebooks. Now, the guidebooks are brought from my previous career. I'm a tradesman. I've been in the trades for quite a while. The largest portion of my career is in trades. Ticketed roofer, so I have a guidebook on how to roof from the bottom up, right from the start, identifying the tools of the trade, identifying individual job sites, identifying the products and how they're used, the expectations of a job site, from getting there the first day to the wrap up and the inspection, and then the same with flooring. So installation of vinyl, laminate, hardwood, engineered carpet, all those things are discussed in the most simple terms so that anybody who has this booklet, and it's just going to be a small booklet that can be printed, is a pocketbook basically. So if you're a homeowner and you just want to install some vinyl flooring, all the basic necessary information is in there. Of course, you can't cover every eventuality, but most are covered. So it's going to be worth the investment. You can flip through some random pages prior to purchasing it, and then they will be available for purchase. So these are the sorts of things that I wanted to let you know that they're in the works. They're already well underway, and most of the stories, 5 stories I think, or 6 stories are done. PDFs are loaded. The children's stories, PDFs are loaded. I have other stuff that's on there, the Flash and stuff like that. We're just going to clean it up and put it onto a better format on a website in order for the visits to be a lot cleaner and a lot better. Creating websites, I've figured out over the years, has been one of the biggest challenges I've run across, only because it's from a hands-on type of career path to a digital and electronic sort of career moving forward. The transition is not as smooth as I would have hoped, and that's where I appreciate other people's help. I'm a little out of context on a lot of this because I've got a lot of things going on. Everybody does, with all the stuff that's happening right now. In my previous videos, I talked about the financial situation in most of our countries right now, and everybody fighting to find yield and trying to diversify. I've got like 5 pages open right now. I'm checking out the fact that I've diversified, and I hope you have too. I hope everybody's trying to put a little bit of money aside in all the different asset classes and trying to find somewhere to protect their money, grow their money, create some sort of yield, some sort of interest. It's hard to find out there. We don't want the rich getting richer without us having a share of it too. Nobody wants to end up, on the losing end of this, because there's something grand happening. And I don't mean grand isn't a good thing. I just mean large happening in the world today. And it's going to be a very interesting decade, if nothing else. So I've looked at getting a very cheap chunk of land somewhere just so I have a holdout, a bug out zone. And as you can tell, a lot of places around the world right now where wages are harder to come by, the land in comparison is expensive, even though it's still inexpensive if you look across the board. Well, it's the same thing here, because the land that we have out here is, even the smallest chunk of land on less than 1/4 of an acre is still relatively expensive. But it is something that I'm looking to at least get my hands on. So I may not, eventually I'd like to build on the land. I've always wanted, since I was young, I've always wanted a chunk of land that I could build 5 or 6 houses on and name it after, the family. We would have houses on that land. So no matter what happens, my kids would always have a home, something that they own, something that they have, and they would never feel lost or, under the bridge for whatever that means. So when we were talking about that P Shield, and I was at the truck dealership the other day because my truck was redlining. It's a little hard to explain, but anyways, we were coming from, my daughter had got a piercing, and then we were leaving downtown, and my truck was redlining. Sorry, a little story here. I'm going to go off script here. A little story. I just found it kind of funny because my daughter, who just turned 15, is not the type of person to swear in front of me. I know she swears. I know when she's with her friends. There's the dual personality thing. You are different people to different people. So not usually around me. She doesn't usually swear. She keeps it pretty tame. Same with my 11-year-old son. Anyway, so we are leaving town. I'm driving down the highway. I'm starting to drive down the highway, and my truck is redlining, and it doesn't want to go into second. And then it's in second. It doesn't want to go into third. So it's redlining just means that the tach is going up. The RPMs, rotations per minute, are going too high, and then they're supposed to change over to another gear, to a higher gear, and then the rotations per minute, or RPMs, drop, because in that higher gear, just like a bicycle with the gears, the more you pedal, the harder you pedal, the chain will go to the next gear, so that you pedal less, but you get more torque, you get more momentum. And when my truck is doing this, it's like, wow, my truck's not that old, so what the heck's going on? So I bring it back to the dealer, and I was supposed to get an oil change. So I bring it in, I limp it in, I park it, and I go into the dealer, and I see the first guy. His name was I probably shouldn't say. Anyway, so I go in, and this gentleman's sitting in his chair at his computer, and he says, "How can I help you?" I said, "Well, I just limped in. I'm supposed to bring my truck in for an oil change, but I had to come in a bit early without an appointment. My daughter and I were thinking about maybe upgrading," and he jumps out of his chair. It's like, of course, I hadn't anticipated that. Of course, he's going to jump out of his chair. Somebody said he's going to buy a truck. So we're there for like 2.5 hours, literally 2.5 hours, and he's showing me another truck, almost the exact same truck, but a new one. And we're looking at other options and what it is I'm willing to purchase, what it is, I'm eligible to purchase. And we go through this whole financing thing and whatever. And I don't like the idea of being in debt. I don't have a mortgage. I don't want to be in debt. I don't have a whack of credit cards and stuff. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in owing people a lot of money. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to be indentured or enslaved to banks or finance companies, paying them their mortgages because I don't want to use my own money, or I can't budget my own money. I've been there. I've had houses, and I've bought and sold, and I'm in a situation where I'd prefer not to. I'd prefer not to be indebted for the next 30 years. Even though we have the lowest interest rates in Canada right now, it's still, if you look at it as a investment over time, the investment over time ends up being 30-year mortgage. Even though you do it in 5-minute or 5-year increments, you still end up paying a huge amount over what that value of that home was in the first place. And the home valuations are crazy. So none of it makes sense. The house prices are too high, and the mortgage rates are too insane. So the governments are trying to hold that up because they feel that the mortgage and the stock markets are keeping the economy from completely imploding, and they're right. So I wasn't excited about getting into another lease loan for a truck, but I'm just extending what I have now, and I basically wanted to get something new so that I don't have to worry about my truck redlining when I'm trying to get my daughter home. She's sitting there, she's, with her piercing is sore, she's getting hungry, and when a 15-year-old daughter gets hangry, you kind of want to deal with it because they can really go off the rails quickly. They're not easy to deal with. She's a great person, and I love her dearly, but I wanted to get her home and fed, and that way I don't have to worry about, you know, being in that kind of bad against the wall situation. So, anyways, they said, okay, well, we're not, the guy in the dealership after a couple of hours, he says, well, we're not quite ready yet. We're still dealing with the banks and we're still talking about how we can get the price of the truck down because it's a brand new truck and whatever. And I was looking at a truck that was actually a year older, but my daughter looked at the truck and said, it's a mean looking truck. And she really liked it. And I did too. So they were still working numbers out. So they said, well, maybe we can get you home. Where do you live? And we said, over in this part of town. They said, oh, no, nobody lives out there. I said, yeah, I do. He said, well, no, nobody here lives in that part of town. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not taking the bus, man. What are you going to do, right? So I gave them a deposit and they gave us a loaner. So my girl and I, my daughter and I, they get the loaner, they come back in, he gives me the keys, and then we go step outside and we're standing at the door. We're standing at the door of the dealership, and my daughter says, what the expletive deleted is that? And we're looking at this red minivan, like a burgundy minivan, 4-door. It's like, oh my God. I've never had, I think when I was first married years and years and years ago, we had a minivan. This is the first minivan I've been in years and years and years, and my daughter's like, "What the?" And I'm like, "That's hilarious." So I'm laughing. I'm going, "Are you kidding? I'm a soccer mom." So I get this. We hop in. My daughter's standing at the door and she won't get in. I'm sitting in the minivan. I'm going, "Come on, we got to go home. We got to get you fed. Got to get home." She's like, she won't get in. I'm like, get in. So I had to fight with her just to get into the minivan. Anyways, it was sort of a sad story. Long story short, when I went back the next day, which was yesterday, and I went back to the dealer and I said, here's your van, let's get this deal done so I can grab my truck. They still hadn't finished it. So yesterday, I'm like, fine, I'm a soccer mom for a couple more days. So I take the van home and I come into the house and my daughter says, oh, so, where's the truck? And I said, it's still in the shops. And I said, I'm a soccer mom for a few more days. The back end of the story is that my son, who's 11, when I had to drive his friend home last night, he hops into the minivan and he's walking from the back to the front and the back to the front. And I said, you got to sit down, especially like when I start going here, grab a seat. You got 8 to choose from, man. You know what I mean? This thing's like a bus, right? He loves it. He loves the minivan. He wants me to keep the minivan. And I don't, it's not my gig. When we stepped out of the minivan, like my daughter and I, when we first got home, we stepped out of the minivan. And you're used to stepping out of a truck and there's a runner to step on because the truck's high, right? We step out of the minivan and my daughter's like, oh my God, I almost broke my ankle. The ground was like right there. Have you ever been in a Corvette, or have you ever been in, say, even a Lambo or something like that? If you've been in one, you're like laying down. And when you get up, you actually, when you roll yourself out, because there's a certain roll technique to getting out of those low cars and still look cool so it doesn't look like you're fumbling with a handful of groceries and a cat. So anyways, it's the same idea. You get out, but you do this roll thing where you kind of step out and you sway your leg out because you're in sort of a laying down position in those cars. That they're made that way because it's a comfort thing, right? Anyways, the coolest thing about it, and this is the last part of the story, the coolest thing about it was that for the first time, and I know a lot of you already know this, but I hadn't seen it before, is in the rear view mirror, there's a backup camera, and the picture comes up in the backup camera. When I first looked at it, you know that thing that says objects in the mirror closer than they appear? There was a tree like right there, and I thought, oh my God, if I was in the truck, I probably would have nailed it. Anyways, so the point is the website is up and coming. I'm keeping this thing down to 30 minutes, and I'm pretty close. So I'm going to update this probably later on again today, and I'm going to try to stay away from the word So thanks for listening, and visit the website, and we'll talk to you again soon.